Hello, this is Mrs. Boots, and we're going to do the practice problems for solving by substitution. So problem number 1 is a 2 by 2 system. So we have 2 variables and 2 equations. Remember, the first thing we want to do is find a variable that has a coefficient of 1. So I notice that first equation, the x has a coefficient of 1. So I want the x by itself. That means I have to move the 3y to the other side, which makes it negative. So now I have a minus 3y minus 15. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we are going to plug it into the other equation. So I'm going to write the other equation out, and I'm going to put parentheses where that x is going to go. And that way we can clearly see exactly where we're supposed to plug it in at. So we have a minus 3y minus 15. That's getting plugged in there. So there's no confusion. Don't accidentally plug in the wrong variable for it. So we need to distribute the 3. So we have negative 9y minus 45 plus 5y equals negative 25. We can combine some like terms here. So I have negative 4y minus 45 equals negative 25. And now let's move that 45 to the other side. So negative 4y equals, well, that's going to add. So 45 minus 25 is 20. Divided by negative 4y equals negative 5. Now this is only half of the answer. So we need to go back and plug that in for the x. So we had x equals negative 3y minus 15. And we are going to plug in the value of y. Okay, and the value of y is negative 5. So x is equal to 15 minus 15, which is, 0. Real anticlimactic there. Now we have our entire answer. Our entire answer is 0, negative 5. Number 2. Number 2 actually looks a little bit easier because if I notice that x is already by itself. So I'm just going to put parentheses around the other side. I don't have to go over and solve it. But we do need to plug that in. So we're going to write out our second equation, 2, and put parentheses where that x is. Plus 6y equals negative 9. Okay? Where those parentheses are at, we plug in the value that is inside parentheses in the first equation. So that's negative 4y. Now we need to distribute so we can solve. So 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. So I have negative 8y plus 6y equals negative 9. Right? That gives me negative 2y equals negative 9. And everybody's panicking now. 9's an odd number. 2's even. That's okay. 9 divided by 2, 4.5. It's not pretty, but it's possible, right? And that's okay. We like possible. So let's go over and now solve for the x value. So x is equal to negative 4y. We need to plug in the y value. That y value is positive 4.5. No big deal. So now 4.5 times 4, it's negative. That gives me negative 18. So my answer is negative 18, 4.5. Remember to always write your answer as a coordinate pair. Number 3. Number 3, we also notice that we have a variable already by itself, so we're just going to put parentheses on the other side. And that variable is the y. So when we write our equation out, we need to leave a spot with parentheses for the y, not the x. So I put my 1.5x minus 3.5 times, leave a nice open spot for that x, and now I'm plugging in the negative 2x plus 14. Okay? Now we can actually distribute. I know they're decimals, but that's okay. We got a calculator. We can plug them in. So I got 1.5x. This ends up being plus 7x. Distribute to the 14. I get minus 49 equals to 2. Now we're going to combine some like terms and move that negative 49 over. So I know 49 plus 2 is 51. That's the easy part. 1.5 plus 7 is 8.5. Now we divide by 8.5. And surprise, surprise, we get a nice pretty whole number. Isn't that cool? But now we have to plug it in. So let's go back up to the top. So we had y equals negative 2x plus 14. So it's negative 2x is negative 2 times plus 14. So what are we multiplying? What are we putting in there? We're putting in the 6. Okay? So negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. So it's negative 12 plus 14. Y equals 2. So my answer, remember always write the x value first, is 6, 2. Number 4. Number 4 is a 3 by 3 system. So that means I have 3 equations, 3 unknowns. I'm going to look for the equation that either has only one variable or 2 variables. Now I wrote mine in a different order to make it a little bit more clear, but you'll notice the equation negative 4z equals 20 only has the z variable. So that's where I'm going to start. So my negative 4z equals 20. We can divide both sides by negative 4, and we get z equals negative 5. That's awesome. I can plug that in a minute, but let's look at one of the other equations, because the next equation just has an x and a y. So I can't plug z into that one, but I can do something to solve it. I'm going to solve it for the one that has the smaller of the 2 coefficients. Alright? So that would mean I'd have, let me write it down first, 6 minus 3y equals to 0. I'm going to move that y to the other side so it's positive. And then if I divide by 3, I get 2x equals to y. Well, that gives me a relationship that I can now use to solve. So we're going to use this relationship and our relationship for z, and we're going to plug those both in to the last equation. So last equation, I have minus 2x plus 3. Now I've got something to plug in for y, plus 5. I've got something to plug in for z, equals negative 21. Alright? So let's see what we're plugging in. The z value we found, that was negative 5, so make sure we plug that into the right spot. And the y value is 2x. So if I look at this equation, notice the only variable in that equation is now just a plain old x, which is beautiful because now I can solve for that x. So I have negative 2x. This becomes 6x because 3 times 2 is 6. 5 times negative 5, negative 25 equals negative 21. Now let's combine like terms and solve. 6x minus 2x is 4x. Minus 25 equals negative 21. Move the 25 to the other side and I have 4x equals 4, which means x equals 1. But this is not all. We still have to plug that 1 in. So let's go back to our y equation and plug in the 1. So we have 2 times 1 equals to y. So y equals to 2. Now we need to write it as a coordinate. So I have 1, 2, negative 5. And that is the solution. Number 5. Number 5, we're back to the easy ones. First equation, I have a plain old y with stuff equal to 4x. So we're going to plug that in for the y in our other equation. This will be awesome. So I have 32x plus 21 times 4x equals to 29. So 32x plus, well, 21 times 4 is what? 84. 84x equals to 29. Now 32 plus 84 is 116. So if 116x equals to 29, you're like, there is no way we're getting a whole number. You're right. When we divide that, we actually get 0.25. That's the amount of a quarter. It's the same thing as 1 over 4. That is half of our solution. We now need to plug that in to find the other half. So we had y equals to 4 times x, right? So 4 times 1/4, or 0.25, is just 1. So my answer is 0.25, 1. It's that easy. Number 6. Number 6, we got 2 equations, 2 variables. The bottom equation looks easier to me because all my coefficients are 1. So I'm going to take my bottom equation, I'm going to solve it for y. You could solve it for x. So remember, we got to move the x to the other side. So I end up with y equals x plus 8 because the x becomes positive when you move it. I'm going to take the other equation and plug that y in. So I'm going to have a 4 with parentheses minus 15x equals negative 1. Now what goes inside the parentheses? That's right. The x plus 8 goes inside those parentheses. So now we can distribute that 4. So we get 4x plus 32 minus 15x equals to negative 1. Combine like terms. Negative 15, positive 4 gives me negative 11. Minus 32 equals negative 1. Oh, that's a plus. Got to move it to the other side and turn it into a minus. And minus 32 and minus 1 gives me minus 33. Divide by negative 11 and x equals 3. Awesome. Let's plug it back in and find the y value. So we have y equals to 3 plus 8. So 8 plus 3 is, very good, it's 11. Alright, so my answer is 3, 11. Number 7. So number 7, we don't have something that's real obvious, where it's just one variable in the equation. So I'm going to go for the next best thing. The equation that only has 2 variables. Happens to be the very first one. So we're going to solve that for x. You could solve it for y, but the y is negative. Moving it over makes it positive, and I just love positive things. So I'm solving it for x. That gives me the y minus 2. Now I'm going to take that y minus 2, and I'm actually going to plug it in to the second equation. Notice the second equation has z's. It has a z, a minus 3x, minus 3y, plus 9. Now I left a little hole in there for that x value. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take that equation, y minus 2. We're going to plug it in for that x. Notice now my x is gone from my z equation. This will help me in the future because the fewer variables I have to deal with, the faster I can solve. So z is equal, now we distribute, negative 3y plus 6 minus 3y plus 9. And when we simplify that, z is equal to negative 6y plus 15. So now I have something I can plug in for z. Here's the cool part. That last equation has x, y, and z. I've got something for x, I've got something for z. So I'm going to write it out and plug it all in. So we have negative 4 times the stuff for x plus 5y plus the stuff for z equals to 8. Okay? Let's go ahead and plug those in. So x is y minus 2. Make sure you plug in the expressions in the correct spot. Plug it in for the appropriate variable. Z is negative 6y plus 15. Do we have them plugged in correctly? Yes, we do. It's always best to double check. Now we can distribute. So this distribute the negative 4. We have negative 4y plus 8. Still have that plus 5y, and there's nothing to distribute, so we just keep going. Minus 6y plus 15 equals 8. Now let's simplify. Adding all those y's together. So I have minus 4 minus 6 is minus 10, plus 5 gives me minus 5y. If I move the 8 over, it cancels out. I'm just going to leave the 15 where he is. And now I'm going to move the 15 over. So I have negative 5y equals negative 15. Y equals, yep, you got it, 3. So I now have one part of my answer. Here's the cool part. I can now go back and solve the other equations. So my x is equal to whatever y was minus 2. So I'm going to plug in that 3, and we see that x is equal to 1. Now let's look at the z equation. Z was equal to negative 6 times y plus 15. And what's y again? Yep, it's 3. So negative 6 plus 3, nope, negative 6 times 3 is negative 18 plus 15. So that means my z is equal to negative 3. Let's now write that as a coordinate. X is 1, y is 3, z is negative 3. That is my complete answer. Number 8. Wow, I see an easy one right off the bat. Notice the second equation. The second equation only has an x. So I can take that 3x minus 6 and just divide by 3. Sorry, 3x equals negative 6, divide by 3. That gives me x equals negative 2. Now let's look. Which equation is next? Which equation is simplest? Well, I look at the top equation. So I'm going to take my x and plug it in. Plus 3y equals negative 17. What was x? X is negative 2. So that's what I'm plugging in. So now I have, to move that negative to the other side, I get 3y equals negative 15, which means y equals negative 5. Divided by the 3, got negative 5. So now I have x and I have y. Super easy. Let's just plug it in and find the z. So we have 4 times x minus 3 times my y plus 6z equals 25. Make sure you plug in the appropriate values. X is negative 2. Y is -5. Double check. Now we can multiply it out. 4 times -2 is -8. -3, -5 is +15. Plus 6z equals 25. Okay, -8 plus 15. Well, that's going to be a 7, right? So I have 7 plus 6z equals 25. Move that 7 to the other side. I have 6z equals 18 because we subtracted the 7. Divide by 6 and I get z equals 3. So now my full answer, x is -2, y is -5, z is 3. And this is the complete answer for number 8. Number 9. Now we have a word problem. Juan bought 30 drinks, either cola or root beer. That is awesome. That gives me right there an equation. I know that two things together equals 30. So we're going to add them. So C is my cola, R is my root beer. So if I take my colas plus my root beers, that's going to equal 30. What an easy equation. Now let's look at the next sentence, because usually a sentence is an equation. Cola is equal to twice the number of root beer. They even told you what to write. Cola equals twice root beer. Well, this is awesome because for substitution, this tells me what I can plug in for my C value. So let's put that in there. So we're going to have C plus R equals 30. And what was the C? The C is 2R. Now let's just simplify it. 2R plus R is 3R. That's equal to 30. Divide by 3, R is equal to 10. So we know there's 10 root beer. Now let's plug that in and find out how many colas we have. So my colas was equal to twice my root beer. So 2 times 10 is 20. So unlike the problems where we didn't have any words, it was just X, Y, and Z, we'd always put it as a coordinate. But since we know what they are, we need to write it down. So I have 10 root beer and I have 20 cola. Always, always, always label your answers when you're dealing with word problems. Number 10. There were 24 people, teachers and students. Again, 24 is a total. They just told me add it together. T plus S equals 24. Super easy. Not a big deal. Okay? Now let's look at the second sentence. There were 3 times as many students as teachers. So if I take the number of teachers and multiply it by 3, I would get the number of students. So students equals 3 times the teachers. This is what most people get backwards. Now that we know what to plug in, all we have to do is put it in our equation. So the S is equal to 3t. Super easy, not a big deal. 3t plus 1t is 4t. Now it's going to equal to 24. Divide by 4 and you get 6. So there's 6 teachers. That's part of my answer. Write it down. Now, how many students is there? Or are there? So my students is 3 times my teachers, which was 6. So my number of students is 18. So I have 18 students. Now we have a complete answer. Number 11. Number 11, we have a plumber and an apprentice. The plumber earns $28 an hour and the apprentice earns $15. The plumber worked 3 more hours than the apprentice. Let's start there. So my plumber equals my apprentice plus 3, because the plumber worked 3 more than the apprentice. If they're paid $213, how much did they earn? 213 is a total. So something equals $213. Well, how many dollars does the plumber get? So I have 28P plus how many dollars does the apprentice get? 15A. Alright? So now we can actually look and start to solve. My plumber is equal to A plus 3. So let's plug that in. So I'm going to take and put parentheses in there for my P value. So I have 28 times plus 15A equals 213. What are we plugging in? Yeah, we're plugging in A plus 3. Yes, I know it's big numbers, but they like to get paid, right? So now we're going to finish this off. What have we got? Distribute the 28. I have 28A plus 84 plus 15A equals 213. Now, what is 28 plus 15? 43. So I have 43A plus 84 equals 213. Move the 84 over, which is going to be subtraction. So I have 43A equals 129. Divide by 43 and I get 3. So that's 3 hours. The apprentice worked 3 hours. So if the apprentice worked 3 hours, how many hours does the plumber work? Well, the plumber worked 3 more than him, so the plumber worked 6 hours. Number 12. Number 12 is kind of tricky, but we can figure it out. Alright? So we have a homecoming dance that costs $20 for a single ticket and $35 for couples. The total ticket sales are 2,280 and 128 people attended. Well, let's do our total ticket sales, right? The total ticket sales was 2,280. How much was it for a couple? 35 for a couple and 20 for a single person. Okay, so that gives us an equation. That's a start. But now we have the people attended. The people who attended is also an equation. They're equal to 128. How many people make up a single person? Well, obviously just one. How many people make up a couple? 2. So 1G plus 2C equals 128. That's the common mistake that is made on this kind of a problem. They put G plus C equals 128. Well, we're going to solve that second equation for the G so that we can plug it in to our first equation. So when I solve it for G, I get negative 2C plus 128. That is what I'm going to plug in to my other equation. So when I do that, remember we're going to put our parentheses in there, so I have 35C plus 20 parentheses equals the 2,280. Now we plug in our expression. Negative 2C plus 128. Now we can distribute. Now we can solve. So I have 35C distribute the 20, you get minus 40C, and then 20 times the 128 gives me 2,560. And that's equal to 2,280. So now let's combine like terms. I get negative 5C plus 2560 equals to 2280. Well, that's okay. Move the 2560 to the other side, and I get negative 280. So when I divide 280 by 5, I get 56. So there are 56 couples. Now let's find out how many singles we have. So we're going to have to take that 56 and plug it in. So G was equal to negative 2 times my couples, which is 56, plus 128. When I put that in my calculator, I get 16. So there were 16 singles. Number 13. Reba's having a party. She got 6 bottles of Sprite and 10 pizzas for $60. Boom, there's an equation. Let's write it down. So we have 6 bottles plus 10 pizzas equals to 60. Later, she got 2 bottles plus 4 pizzas for 22. Wow, this is a little complex. Actually, not really. I look at that second equation and I notice something. I notice they're all even numbers, so I'm going to go through and divide each of them by 2. And that gives me B plus 2P equals 11. Well, now I can solve that. So B equals to negative 2P plus the 11. Well, now I have an expression for B that I can plug back in. So I have 6 times that B plus 10P equals to 60. Well, what is my expression that I'm plugging in? Negative 2P plus 11. Easy enough, right? We need to distribute that 6. So 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Negative 12p, 6 times 11, 66, plus 10p equals to 60. Now let's combine our like terms. And negative 2p plus 66 equals to 60. And then move the 66 over. Negative 2p equals negative 6. Divide by negative 2p equals 3. So the pizzas are $3 each. Now I think that's hilarious. They must have had a coupon. So I've never seen a pizza that cheap. But that's okay. Now we're going to take P and plug it back in. So B is equal to negative 2 times my P plus 11. So 2 times 3, that's 6, right? So I have negative 6 plus 11. So the bottles of Sprite are $5. Somebody's crazy if they're paying that much for a bottle of Sprite, right? So we do need to label it. So we have $3 for pizza and $5 for Sprite. Again, I think the pizza was on sale. Number 14, last practice problem. We have 3 flavors of ice cream: chocolate, vanilla, and cookies and cream. And I know I'm having R be cookies and cream because my C's already taken for chocolate. You can pick a different letter if you'd like. So last week they sold 232 ice cream cones. Yep, it's a total. So add them all together. C plus V plus R equals 232. Easy enough. Now we have 2 more equations in different sentences. There are 4 fewer than 3 times as many chocolate cones as vanilla. So I'm going to do 3 times my chocolate minus 4, and that's equal to my vanilla. Third equation. The number of chocolate and vanilla combined equals cookies and cream. So chocolate plus vanilla equals the cookies and cream. Wow. That's pretty interesting there. But look at that 3c minus 4. That's an expression by itself. I could plug that in for my v. Okay? Well, I could also plug it in right here for v in my second equation. That gets rid of one of my variables. Let's go ahead and do that. So in that last equation, c plus v equals r, I'm going to plug in a value for v. And what I'm plugging in is the second equation that we wrote. That second equation is 3c minus 4. So let's simplify that. C plus 3c, that's 4c, minus 4 equals to r. Now I have an expression for r that's in terms of c, and an expression for v in terms of c. So let's plug both of those into the other equation. You think you're ready to try that? It's pretty awesome. So c plus whatever v is, plus whatever r is, equals to 232. Easy enough. What is v? v is 3c minus 4. Now, what is r? r is 4c minus 4. Now we can distribute and solve. Well, there's nothing to distribute, so let's just add them together. I have 1c, 3c, 4c. So that gives me 8 c's. And then I have a negative 4 and a negative 4. So it's 8c minus 8 equals 232. Now we add the 8 to the other side. So I have 8c equals to 240. Now let's divide by 8. C equals 30. So that means there were 30 chocolate. That's awesome. I like chocolate. Okay, so we have 30 chocolate ice cream cones. Now we can plug C back in and find out our vanilla and our cookies and cream. Let's do cookies and cream first, just for kicks and giggles. So we take 4 times that 30 minus 4. And that's equal to my cookies and cream. So what is 4 times 30? 4 times 30 is, what, 120? Yep, 120 minus 4. So that would be 116. So there's 116 cookies and cream. Now let's look at our vanillas. What have we got? We have 3. I'm going to erase that arrow so I've got a little bit more room here. I have 3 times my number of chocolate minus 4. My number of chocolate was what? 30. 3 times 30 is 90. Right? And 90 minus 4 is 86. So I have 86 vanilla. And that's all of our practice problems for systems of equations.